Louisville and acting head coach David Padgett made some changes to the team's coaching staff on Wednesday. Padgett added some stability to the coaching staff with the addition of veteran head coach Trent during the afternoon. Later on Wednesday evening, Louisville officially parted ways with assistant coach Jordan Fair. A 17-year head coach at 4 stops, Nevada, Stanford, LSU and TCU, Johnson should help offset the loss of former head coach Rick Pitino. Fair and assistant coach Kenny Johnson, placed on administrative leave. Padgett is only in his second season of college coaching while being a first-time head coach, so adding an experienced coach like Johnson is probably a wise move. Johnson owns a 276,264 head coaching record and coached teams to 5 NCAA tournament appearances. Coach Johnson is highly experienced, Padgett in a statement. I've personally known him for a long time. He was the head coach at Nevada when his son and I played in high school together. He is going to bring a wealth of knowledge to our program. He's someone that I will be able to lean on and our players will be able to relate well to him. I think under the circumstances, I don't think that we could find a better hire. Louisville exercised an option in Fair's contract to terminate him without cause, according to a release from the school. The first-year assistant coach was a program assistant last season before he was elevated into a full-time assistant when Mike Bilotta left to become head coach at Arkansas State. I thought that this would finally be the breaking point, the moment that changed everything. The allegations detailed in the FBI complaints that were unveiled on September 26 were indisputable proof that college basketball players had massive value on the open market. If building a business relationship with an athlete that had the potential to sell millions of sneakers and generate a fortune in agent fees wasn't enough for you to believe it, direct evidence of an apparel company funneling six-figure payouts to players that were anything but a lock to be one-and-dones in an effort to protect their biggest brands and biggest investments at the collegiate level should have been. I thought that this would be the tipping point, the watershed moment that eliminated the term amateurism from the NCAA's rulebook. This would be what led college athletics to adopt the Olympic model, I thought. The truth is that we couldn't be further away from seeing that change happen. On Wednesday, NCAA President Mark Emmert announced that he would be forming a commission on college basketball, chaired by former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, to look into the corruption this FBI investigation exposed. The goal of the commission is to examine the relationship that shoes companies, agents, advisors and AAU programs have with college programs, coaching staffs and players, the status of the relationship between the NCAA and the NBA, and to evaluate whether the rules as written, which are so routinely broken and borderline unenforceable by the NCAA, need to be changed. That might be good news if the release announcing the commission, which includes, at most, 2 former coaches that could have an actual understanding of how cheating in college basketball happens, didn't include language like the culture of silence in college basketball enables bad actors, and we need them out of the game, or we must take decisive action. This is not a time for half measures or incremental change, or ensure exploitation and corruption cannot hide in college sports. This commission isn't being formed because the NCAA truly wants to evaluate whether or not going to the Olympic model is something that would actually work. This commission is precisely the kind of committee that gets formed by multi-billion-dollar corporations when they want to pretend like they're taking a problem seriously. Emmert's statement might as well have read, "We take this issue so seriously that we're forming a committee with a bunch of out-of-touch administrators that won't issue any findings for 6 months, enough time to, hopefully, allow the speed of the 2017 news cycle will to erase this story from your memory, Facebook and Twitter feeds, because your foxtrot will be focused somewhere else by then." The NCAA has absolutely no incentive to consider anything other than enforcing the status quo in regards to amateurism. The way the current rules are written, they are the ones that make all the profits when it comes to advertising and sponsorships. Under Armour just invested $280 million into an apparel deal with UCLA. Louisville and Adidas have an $160 million deal. If Under Armour could pay, say, Lonzo, Leon Gallo and LaMelo Ball 1% of that figure to wear and promote their brand, that's something that would be more appealing than spending roughly $19 million a year to outfit an entire athletic department with Adidas, who was caught by the FBI investing $100,000 into what amounted to an under-the-table sponsorship of Brian Bowen and attempting to invest another $150,000 into a 2018 prospect assumed to be Nasser Little to get him to go to an Adidas school, rather spend a couple of million on reigning Heisman Trophy winner Lamar Jackson or send 98% of their money straight to Rick Pitino. It works on a smaller scale as well. Would a car dealership rather spend their advertising dollars promoting their product with in-stadium advertisements or by paying the All-American running back or point guard directly to be on billboards, sign autographs in the lobby and drive around town in a new Dodge Challenger, telling anyone that, well listen, they got a great deal on it from Bob's Discount Motors? I don't know the answer to that. The schools probably do, but if they don't, I'm guessing they don't want to find out. They don't want to risk that revenue stream drying up. And if the schools don't want to make those changes, the NCAA is never going to make those changes. Because the NCAA is made up of those universities and colleges. They're not going to implement a rule that hurts themselves. And they're certainly not going to change that rule when the FBI has become their enforcement arm. On Wednesday, The Oklahoman reported that Oklahoma State had received a subpoena from a grand jury in New York requesting any documents or communications from the last 3 years that show actual or potential NCAA rules violations. An attorney that has worked for a prosecutor and as a defender in the state of New York told NBC Sports that it is unlikely Oklahoma State was the only school to receive a subpoena of this nature. Couple that nugget with this: one of the charges levied at the 4 assistant coaches arrested last month was conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Those charges were leveled because the coaches, in concealing bribe payments to prospective and current student-athletes, caused their schools to provide athletic scholarship to student-athletes who, in truth and in fact, were ineligible to compete as a result of the bribe payments. Think about that for a second. Knowingly making a college athlete ineligible is now a federal crime. I repeat, the U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of New York and the FBI went and made breaking NCAA rules a federal crime. The reason cheating was so rampant and so open in college basketball was because the NCAA's enforcement arm was toothless. They can't file subpoenas. They can't wiretap phones. They don't go undercover or have the ability to turn criminal financial advisors into snitches with the threat of SEC violations. Hell, NCAA officials lost their jobs over the investigation into Miami and Nevin Shapiro in part because they sat in on a bankruptcy proceeding they were not allowed to have access to. The only threat the NCAA really has in a case like this is to say, if you lie to us and we catch you, you're banned. That threat might hold some weight if the NCAA could actually catch people. They can't, but the FBI, quite clearly, can. And now that they're involved, the NCAA has no reason to change their stance on amateurism. By making it a federal crime to break NCAA rules, the most powerful prosecutor in the United States of America guaranteed that college athletes will never get paid their worth. Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, released a statement on Tuesday announced that a commission of college basketball has been formed. Headed by former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, the commission will be tasked with finding a way to clean up the corruption in college basketball that has come to light as the result of last month's bombshell FBI investigation. The culture of silence in college basketball enables bad actors, and we need them out of the game, Emmert said in the statement. We must take decisive action. This is not a time for half measures or incremental change. The commission will be tasked with 3 things. The first will be the relationship that entities such as agents, shoe companies and AAU programs have with Division I coaches and the athletes themselves. The second is the relationship that college basketball has with the NBA, specifically with the one-and-done rule. The third is whether or not the way the rules are currently written and enforced actually works. We need to do right by student-athletes, the statement read. I believe we can, and we must, find a way to protect the integrity of college sports by addressing both sides of the coin: fairness and opportunity for college athletes, coupled with the enforcement capability to hold accountable those who undermine the standards of our community. The commission will include, among others, former Georgetown coach John Thompson III, former Stanford coach Mike Montgomery, David Robinson, Grant Hill and a slew of college presidents and athletic directors. If you needed evidence that the FBI's investigation into corruption in college basketball isn't over, you got it today. The Oklahoman obtained a subpoena that was sent by a New York grand jury to Oklahoma State on September 27 requesting any documentation or communications that show actual or potential NCAA rules violations by a member of or a person connected to the men's basketball program. The grand jury is requesting all of the documentation be sent in by October 17, with the punishment for a lack of action being a contempt of court charge. The time frame for the subpoena dates all the way back to the start of 2014, which means that 3 different Cowboy head coaches will be caught up in the mix here: Travis Ford, who was fired in 2016, Brad Underwood, who left for Illinois last March, and Mike Boynton, who was hired to replace Underwood. Thus far, the only member of the Oklahoma State coaching staff that has been arrested or linked to any wrongdoing is Lamont Evans, who spent just over a year on the OSU staff. Prior to that, he was an assistant coach with South Carolina. At both schools, according to the FBI complaints filed on September 26, Evans is alleged to have taken bribes from a financial advisor that was working with the FBI in exchange for using his influence with players that were destined for the professional ranks. Evans is expected to be arraigned in a New York City courtroom tomorrow. Beginning in September and running up through November 10, the first day of the regular season, College Basketball Talk will be unveiling the 20,172,018 NBCSports.com College Hoops Preview Package. Today, we are previewing the MAC. The MAC is in a strange position entering the 201,718 season. While the league's East Division has been the dominating force among the league's two divisions the past few years, this year the West Division, led by Western Michigan, is receiving a bigger share of the preseason buzz. Speaking of Western Michigan, they became the favorite as soon as senior guard Thomas Wilder opted to pull out of the 2017 NBA draft. A top 100 player in college basketball this season, Wilder is the runaway favorite for preseason MAC Player of the Year after leading the MAC in three-point shooting while putting up 19.3 points and 3.8 assists per game. Besides having a pro prospect on the roster, the Broncos have depth on the interior and some promising sophomores to keep tabs on. Centers Seth Duggan and Drake Lamont can be tough to contain, and sophomores Brandon Johnson and Reggie Jones both showed flashes of strong play last season. Staying in the West Division, Ball State is quietly coming off of back-to-back 20-win seasons as head coach James Whitford returns quite a bit of production. Junior guard Taylor Persons is a very strong mid-mahor floor leader, while center Trey Moses and floor spacers like Francis Kiapway and Sean Sellers are back as well. Buffalo is the preseason favorite for the East Division as they combine talented newcomers with solid veterans. A league candidate, C.J. Massenberg, is back for his junior season at guard, while forward Nick Perkins should also see a bigger role. The Bulls also received some solid additions with Missouri transfer Wes Clark in the backcourt and highly touted JUCO prospect Jeremy Harris on the wing. With NCAA tournament experience from the upperclassmen on the roster, it wouldn't at all be surprising to see Buffalo make another postseason run. After making a surprising NCAA tournament appearance, Kent State has a chance for another strong season. All-MAC forward Jimmy Hall is gone by MAC tournament MVP Jalen Walker is back after a very good sophomore season. To maximize their potential, the Golden Flashes need production from newcomers Akian Frederick and Jonathan Nwanko in the front court. Toledo has had a tough time winning close games the past two seasons as the Rockets return junior wing J. Allen Sanford and sophomore center Luke Nopke from the starting lineup. Junior forward Nate Navigato is an intriguing floor spacer, and Toledo gets some transfer help from Treshawn Fletcher, Colorado, and Willie Jackson, Missouri. Losing Jaron Simmons to Michigan was tough for Ohio, but they still have a few starters coming back. Sophomore forward Jason Carter has the upside to be a major factor in the MAC, while junior guard Jordan Dardis is one of the league's best shooters. Eastern Michigan gets back the league's top big man and James Thompson-Ivy as the double-double machine is only a junior. The Eagles lost a ton this offseason, but senior wing Tim Bond is back and Robert Morris transfer Elijah Minnie is a player to watch in the front court. Bowling Green remains a young team, but they have a lot of returning experience. Sophomore guards Dylan Fry and Roderick Caldwell gave the Falcons a boost when they were inserted into the starting lineup last season, while junior big man DiMaggio Wiggins is an elite threat. Hit hard by off-season transfers, Northern Illinois still returns some intriguing, but unproven, players. The front court of juniors Jalen Key and Lovin Bradley could be solid, and sophomore guard Eugene German gets backcourt help from JUCO All-American Dante Thorpe. Akron now has former Illinois coach John Gross at the helm as they have 8 newcomers on the roster. Junior guard and double-figure scorer Jim and Ivy returns, and Oregon State graduate transfer Malcolm Duvalier should also help. Despite having the scoring prowess of Marcus Keene last season, Central Michigan still floundered to 612 in the MAC as they lose Keene and Braylon Raisin. Sophomore forward David DeLeo and senior forward Cecil Williams could be a solid front court, but the Chippewas have to replace a ton of scoring while also improving defensively. Miami gets a new head coach in former Purdue assistant Jack Owens as he takes over a very depleted roster to begin the rebuild. Senior forward Logan McClain is a returning bright spot for the Redhawks. More 201,718 season preview coverage, conference previews, preview schedule, preseason MAC Player of the Year Thomas Wilder, Western Michigan, one of the most complete guards in the country. Wilder is back for his senior season as he could be a sleeper pro prospect. Leading the MAC in three-point shooting, Wilder was also third in assist-turnover ratio, fourth in scoring, and top 10 in assists and steals. The 6'3" Wilder is capable of big scoring nights but also versatile enough to fill up the box score. The rest of the preseason MAC team: James Thompson, IV, Eastern Michigan, averaging a double-double during his freshman and sophomore seasons. This junior big man is one of the more underrated post players in the country. Jalen Walker, Kent State, last year's MAC tournament MVP, was strong down the stretch as he could be in for a big season if he improves his efficiency as a shooter. Taylor Persons, Ball State A, former ASUN Freshman of the Year at Northern Kentucky. Persons lived up to the hype in the MAC, putting up 15.5 points, 4.9 assists and 3.9 boards per game last season. C.J. Massenberg, Buffalo A, junior guard with NCAA tournament experience. Massenberg had a great sophomore season as he put up 14.5 points, 5.6 rebounds and 2.8 assists per game. One Twitter feed to follow at Hustle Belt Power Rankings: Western Michigan, Ball State, Buffalo, Kent State, Toledo, Ohio, Eastern Michigan, Bowling Green, Northern Illinois, Akron, Central Michigan, Miami. Beginning in September and running up through November 10th, the first day of the regular season, College Basketball Talk will be unveiling the 20,172,018 NBCSports.com College Hoops Preview Package. Today, we are previewing the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. There's plenty of change in the MAAC this season, but the one that will be most visible could very well be the schedule. The league took steps in the off-season that they hope will help boost its members' RPI. They've trimmed the conference schedule from 20 to 18 games, eliminating the true home-and-home round-robin in favor of pitting the top teams against each other and opening up non-conference opportunities. The top teams in the league are required to schedule top 250 RPI squads. After seeing Monmouth put together back-to-back monster seasons without an NCAA tournament berth, it's probably a good move for the MAAC to try to do what they can to improve an already strong league. King Rice's Hawks will face a tall task in trying to repeat their success of the last two seasons, and finally secure that NCAA tournament bid, after the graduation of MAAC Player of the Year Justin Robinson and second leading scorer Yellen Hornbeak. Junior Micah Seaburn will be asked to step into the void, which means he'll have to seriously improve his efficiency to keep Monmouth's offense humming, especially with the Hawks having lost a good chunk of their shooting from last season. After taking the league's automatic NCAA tournament spot the last 2 years, Iona is in much the same spot as Monmouth, trying to replace program stalwarts. Jordan Washington, who had one of the highest usage rates in the country last year, is gone to graduation, as are guards Sam Castle and John Sevier. TK Adogi, a 6'8" forward, moves from a small role at Tulsa to a potentially huge one with the Gales, as does Massachusetts transfer Zach Luz. The key for Tim Clu's squad is probably shoring up the defense. With Washington getting buckets inside, the Gales were able to out-offense teams while their defense lagged well behind. The offense is likely to take a hit this season, so if the defense can make up some of the difference, Iona could be in the picture at the top of the league again. Fairfield HASNT finished in the top 3 of the MAAC since 2012, but with Tyler Nelson back for his senior season, the Stags have a chance to push for a top spot in the league. Transfer losses of Curtis Cobb UMass and Jerry Johnson Chattanooga certainly hurt, but Nelson is the type of player that can help cover up a lot of issues. Plus, point guard Jerome Segura is adept at getting others involved, which may be the key, as Nelson is sure to shoulder a heavy load, but won't be able to do it all alone. Finding additional shooting will be critical for the Stags. Niagara HASNT made much noise in the MAAC in recent seasons, but the Purple Eagles have one of the top on-at-wall combinations in the league in Matt Scott and Khalil Dukes. Both need to improve their efficiency inside the arc, but it's their three-point shooting that helps move the needle. If the two of them are special, Niagara has a chance to do some damage. More 201,718 season preview coverage. Conference previews. Preview schedule. Preseason MAAC Player of the Year Tyler Nelson, Fairfield. The 6'3" guard returns for his senior season as the MAAC's top scorer after averaging nearly 20 points per game last season. He's a near 40% three-point shooter as well as an important distributor for the Stags. Expect a huge minutes and usage load for Nelson, and the big stats to match. The rest of the preseason MAAC team: Matt Scott, Niagara put up 17 points per game, but his 7 rebounds per game may be more impressive from a 6'4" guard. Jermaine Crumpton, Canisius Crumpton is a 6'6", 245-pound tank, but a skilled one who shot nearly 4 three-pointers per game, hitting 42.9% of them last season. Micah Seaburn, Monmouth will be tasked with a big scoring role after the departures of Justin Robinson and Yellen Hornbeak. Khalil Dukes, Niagara. The former USC Trojan shot 41.4% from the three-point line and 92.1% from the free throw line while averaging better than 15 points per game. Predicted finish 1. Iona 2, Monmouth 3, Niagara 4, Fairfield 5, Manhattan 6, St. Peter's 7, Siena 8, Ryder 9, Canisius 10, Marist 11, Quinnipiac